Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Wake Up to Your Life Magic. I am your host, Dr. Helmut Love. You can check me out at drhelmutlove.com. And this podcast is a podcast where we talk about elevating our leadership through the conversations that we have. And today I have with me Joe Kirschenbaum, who is someone that you're going to be delighted to meet to talk to me and you about how we can wake up in the corporate world. Hey, Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Helmut?
I'm super great. I hear you're writing a book on AI. Is that right?
I am. It's in the editing stages. I picked up an AI book a couple of years ago, and it didn't have LLMs in it. So I either start a company to learn, obviously with a profit motive too, or I write to learn. And this article turned into a book, so I should have it out in the next 6 months or so. I'm going through editing, and it I do it while I work. So
Yeah.
with my
Well,
clients, so it takes time.
it is. It does take time. I know. I'm just having written "Wake Up to Your Life Magic." It is a process. Absolutely. So, Joe, just briefly tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, who you serve.
I am a four-time founder. I've had successful exits, including an IPO. Before that, I was a Fortune 500 lawyer for 8 years or so. Before that, I was an engineer. And so I tend to stick with my companies a long time. Currently, I am a fractional C-level executive, CEO or COO, and I provide management consulting services primarily to startups and small to medium enterprises. The occasional larger company comes along as well.
Awesome. Well, if you would, for the benefit of our audience, give us an idea of kind of a formulative story, right? A moment in your life that really shaped you, formed you, changed you, so the audience can kind of get a little bit more about you, fall in love with you a little bit more.
Sure. After I left law, I didn't want to be a partner in a law firm from the very beginning. I was with a very large, prominent American firm, and I just didn't want to be a cog in the machine. I wanted more control than just being a partner in a big law firm or an investment banker or some of the other things I looked at. So I was founding COO of a technology services company. We grew rapidly. We were profitable in 10 months. We grew globally. Ultimately, with numerous back offices in India, we were one of the first companies to do that. And by doing that, I proved to myself that I could successfully lead and grow a company from startup to a much larger enterprise.
Hmm. That's awesome. And that was all your baby.
I was the founding COO. We had a CEO who was also a founder um, and somebody who wasn't involved but provided some initial capital, and then we raised more capital.
And what did you learn from that experience?
I learned that first of all, it's always a matter of having faith in yourself, investing in yourself, having the confidence to go forward. And I learned from it how to become a better leader. And to build a great business like that, and it is still public on two exchanges. I have been involved in it in almost 20 years, except as a shareholder. But to build great businesses, the most important thing I do is lead people, identify, recruit, and engage first rate individuals. And that's the most important because it starts early on in the hiring process. You know, you build world-class teams, you challenge them to tackle tough problems, you inspire them to take risks, you coach and mentor them, and you celebrate their accomplishments. And, you know, I've had a number of extraordinary companies come out of that, but it really starts with hiring the right people. It starts with the interview, even before it, uh, making sure they fit with your culture. I love to hire people smarter than myself. You put your ego aside. Um, they they are self-driven, and that's a hard thing to find. You know, it's not just a job to them. Um, Here's an example. I came in on a Sunday once, and I had virtually my whole leadership team there working. I was very surprised. Now, I was working 7 days a week early on in the startup, but to see people that they weren't working for me, they were working for themselves. And so that's what you try to identify. And as for me, I just take care of their problems and let them run. And that's how I've been successful.
Awesome. So you really, really grew a team that was more powerful than you in many ways, so that they could be successful and then actually achieve the goal, meaning more powerful than you in their different skill sets or
That's
whatever it
right.
was that they brought forth.
And the team doesn't just have to be um, the people that you employ. I mean, that particular company, we had many outside consultants. When we opened up in India, we started by contracting out consultants, and then we ultimately opened a number of our own offices. But it's also your great vendors. I had some terrific vendors that we worked with. So just trying to find people that are exceptional. Um, and part of that is having the right culture, open door policy. I would tell my employees, I make mistakes every day. If you don't tell me I've done something wrong, I can't fix it for you. So you have to tell me that um, this needs to be corrected. We've had employees at one company that it was appropriate. We rewarded people with spot gift cards for great ideas, and that gets around in the company. That's part of building your culture. So actually, part of building the culture is it starts at the interview. I don't like stress interviews. I've been through them, particularly when I was a young lawyer and interviewing on Wall Street and at some of the big Wall Street firms. Um, they sit you in a low chair. They tower above you. They pepper you with questions, and before you can finish answering, they cut you off. To me, that says, why would I want to work for someone who treats me like this before I'm employed? How are you going to treat me after I'm employed? So I've always made it I mean, interviews are nerve wracking for a lot of people. I try to make it really comfortable. And, and part of building the culture is, hey, I know I'm going to hire someone. I interviewed him. It's Christmas Eve. We made a decision. Let's send an email to them now. Let them know they're hired. So it kind of makes their Christmas day. That's happened. The key is it's got to come from your leadership, from your CEO, your COO, building that culture. And that's how you're going to attract top individuals, and not only attract them, but they're going to stay. It's not just about money. It's about liking to go to work in the morning. That doesn't mean that there's going to be no stress. We all have stress, but why maximize it? Why create stress for people beyond what the job entails?
Joe, it sounded like you created a kind and loving environment for people to work in.
Well, that's what you try to do. I mean, otherwise you're going to lose them. People are unhappy, you'll lose them. And one of the things that does is some of the best people I've hired have been referred by my employees. I've set up in a couple of companies referral programs because they won't refer somebody that will make them look bad. So if they like working there, they'll tell their friends, they'll tell their business associates, and it helps us to grow, particularly in a competitive environment. Certainly, when we started Cambridge Technology in 1999, we were competing against much larger public companies, and we didn't have the resources, but we built a very good team. And I've tried to do that throughout. I mean, that was technology services, had a great financial services team for the next company, and post-acute healthcare services. We just had a dynamite team. And I learned this in my first business with my mother, who had no experience. She founded a real estate development and property management business. We bought land. We hired a general contractor to build our first 10-unit townhouse apartment building. And then we did it ourselves. We learned from that, ultimately building a 92-unit complex. But it was always, and that was more important to me than my MBA or my law degree or all that experience, because it was foundational. It was building the first floor before the second, or before the third or the fourth. You've got to do things in the right order. And it was also watching how my mother treated people. We had very little money to get started. We took a risk. It succeeded. I worked throughout that business, everything, construction, roads, cleaned thousands of toilets, painted thousands of apartments over the years. We bought a garbage truck. We didn't have the money to outsource. We bought a garbage truck with a blown engine, and I worked on a garbage truck a couple times a week at 5 a.m. for years. And it went throughout our operation, sales, marketing, the way you treat people. And so I really got that from my mother, who, again, had no experience in business. She had been a Navy officer and a nurse. But nurses didn't make enough money, and she had a family to raise in the early 1970s. So she made a switch.
That's so inspiring. If you think about it, ultimately what I'm hearing, and I know our audience is too, right? Hard work, maybe not necessarily knowing, but going out, taking a risk and trying, and then making it successful, not just trying. And then also the way you treat people. Tell me, as you think about what you're doing now and the vision you live for as you're creating what you do, the various roles that you take, what is it that you're looking to create going forward right now?
Well, I'm doing fractional executive work. I've done it for a variety of companies, but I love being part of a team. I don't know if you've realized that based on what I've said. So I haven't jumped around a lot in my life. I'm ultimately looking for the right company to join full time. And I meet companies as a fractional exec and help them out. But if I find one that's appropriate and there's a good fit, I'd love to join them and take advantage of my experience growing companies in 4 different industries, my sophisticated legal background, and help them to grow and become profitable.
Yeah. So you're not looking to start another one at this point.
At this point, I'm probably not looking to start my own, although I will say writing a book is a project in itself.
It is.
Because it's got to be accurate, and I'm going to self-publish it. I've never done that before. I have done quite a bit of writing in the past and been published in many business, technical, and legal publications. I did some writing for Wiley, some chapters, Wiley Publishers. And my first book, I chose the wrong agent. I was a young lawyer, and it was basically thrown against the wall. And I went to one of the very large agencies in the country, and they thought it was publishable, but they really didn't push it. They had many name authors like Tom Clancy and people like that. So I've learned and nowadays, compared to years ago, you can self-publish. So that's something I have to learn.
It's a fun process. I can give you some tips.
Excellent.
About it. I can do that myself. No, and I appreciate that so much. The thing about belonging to a team, right? We enjoy that. We're, as human beings, we like being parts of organizations, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It gives us meaning and gives us a place to invest. Now, let me, Joe, I'm going to switch questions a bit to a bit of this podcast focus is about waking up our leadership to the fact that we're really creating the world around us, right? We're creating the world that's outside us. And we've gotten to the place where we've created AI, which is a beautiful thing. And 2 thoughts, right? AI will enable individuals to increasingly become more entrepreneurial, right? I can do much more now as an individual, which is really very different than sort of a corporate mindset of I'm this part of a cog, right, in this machine, versus I can do all these pieces. It focuses a lot on then the entrepreneurship, right, of the team that is there, right? As you kind of imagine different groups, maybe not having to have a team there. Maybe you have some apps that help take care of it, but the entrepreneurship of the team that's there is going to be really important. But there's another aspect, which is sort of the morality that AI asks us, right? When should we use it? When should we not? How best to deploy it? And then the whole group of potential startups you could have. So my question for you with all that, Joe, is how do your values or morals or spiritual thoughts about the world, how have those played into your work, whether spoken out loud or simply demonstrated in the work you do? How do you feel about those concepts as you think about leadership in business?
I think without having integrity, I've spoken a lot about hiring great individuals and leading teams. They have to trust you. And so you've got to be utterly honest and have integrity. That doesn't mean you don't tell people everything about what's going on in your business. Some employees, they just need to focus on their areas. But they have to be able to trust you, and it's just like any relationship. Now, with AI, here's an example. I was working on my book yesterday. I looked something up quickly, and I am writing this book. I'm not having AI write it, because, as I told you, I want to learn. There's no point in just putting out something that somebody else does. So, but I looked something out, and because of my I've already been working on this for a year, I realized the answer that AI gave me was wrong. We're still in the very early stages of it is having clean data. Part of it is, and I don't think you're ever going to get away from biases in AI because it's built by human beings. I mean, we've seen these biases. Female popes, for example, was one that came out some months ago, when or that sort of thing. But we're still in the very early stages. AI can be very, very helpful, but it's important that people understand its limitations, at least today. And there are many individuals that are concerned about the morality of AI, in particular with regard to safety. And it's not an issue, obviously, at this point of a scenario like in the Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I'm sure guardrails, which are the limits that are placed on AI, will be further developed than they are now. Now it's kind of a free-for-all, like the early days of the internet. Everybody's plowing in. Here's a good example. We have technological moments in our history, particularly since the Industrial Revolution. We had many railroad companies and shipping companies. We had hundreds of television companies and radio companies and car companies. We went through the PC era, all these technological changes, the internet, mobile, cloud, and now AI. In each case, you have hundreds of companies, and most of them will not succeed. They'll either fail or they'll merge. General Motors bought up companies out of the hundreds of car companies. Even where I grew up in the Hartford, Connecticut area, we had 3 or 4 car companies, including, I think, the Pope Mobile.
Yeah.
So many of these will not succeed. The same thing is, we're at that stage in AI. And as they solidify and you get more dominant companies, ultimately, you will see more better development of guardrails and a consensus around the morality of what you can and can't do, or should and should not do with AI. I do know some companies are Amazon came out in the past couple of weeks. They're saying everybody has to be an AI expert in our company if you want to progress in the leadership chain. So it's being thought about. AI is important, but it's not the be all and end all yet.
Yeah. So I want to go back to your point. I think was great about integrity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where does your sense of integrity come from? How did you establish that? Is it something that you just developed from your time with your mom? Was it an inherent, part of who you are? How did that develop for you, and how did you sustain that commitment through your life and leadership?
I think your formative years are when you develop your personality. I mean, um, I got it from my parents. Um, I don't remember, my dad died when I was a kid, but I remember very little of him. But my mother, single mom with three kids, and didn't quit, tried new things, had nothing to lose. She grew up very poor in the Depression. So she never imagined that she would own a home or own a car or anything like that. And she ended up being very, very successful, but not quitting. I mean, each of my companies I started is in a different industry because my mom took a risk. I guess I picked that up from her. I wanted to learn something and I saw an opportunity. So I rode the internet wave. I rode the financial services wave in the first decade of this century. I rode the baby boomer wave, the silver tsunami of baby boomers needing post-acute health care. And that I had no experience in any of those industries. Had I advised them as a lawyer? Yes. But as an outsider, it's not the same as being the guy that has to make the payroll and sweating that out until you have cash flow coming in. So that's I think it comes from just the way you're brought up.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then pursuing that increasingly. I assumed you hired for that as well. When you talk about your teams, did you look for that in your teams?
Absolutely. That is absolutely part of what getting first-rate individuals. You have to trust them. And because they have to be honest about what you're doing and about your product. I mean, you've got a good sales team. I don't want somebody representing my company and saying, well, we can do this, 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 and that, when we can't, because ultimately you're going to disappoint the customer. And that's bad marketing too. So it's bad from a moral perspective, and it's bad from a business perspective, and potentially from a legal perspective.
Right. Especially the lawyer.
Well,
Well,
I always think of that, but the most
yeah.
important thing, and it's one of the things you'll learn in an ethics class in law school, the difference between what's legally appropriate and what's morally appropriate, because lawyers are told they've got to follow the law.
Right. I Let me ask you, switching gears a little bit, in your current business, as you consult and as you do fractional work, what would you say is maybe a vulnerability that you'd share about a frustration or a challenge that you experience?
I always invested in my companies. That's a very good question. I invested in my companies. That means taking a risk and spending some money. And sometimes you're going to fail, and sometimes you're not. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs that want to be entrepreneurs, and obviously we all want to minimize our risk and maximize our gain, but they don't want to spend any money. They don't want to pay for marketing. They want a lot of free advice from a lot of people, and you can get that to a point. But if you want to build a significant company, you've got to, if you're going to engage top people as a consultant, as a fractional executive, as a management consultant, you're going to have to pay them, and you've got to spend some money. You should spend money on marketing and those kind of resources and tools. I have a perfect example. I met somebody I think has a great AI product.
Yeah.
He's developing it horizontally. He's a PhD. He's developing it horizontally. So I told him, you're going to be much more successful if you choose one or two verticals. He wants the widest market possible to start. And instead of customizing it, he's just going to kind of throw it at the wall. And he doesn't want to pay for sales. He doesn't want to pay for design. I mean, he's a PhD. He built a great product. It needs some a much better user interface. It's easy for him to understand, but he's not selling to PhDs. He's selling to mid-market leaders in healthcare and insurance and those sort of things. But he doesn't want to spend the money. And I gave him some free advice. But he said, I'm just going to see what I can do. And that actually, to me, the risk of what he's doing far outweighs the potential return. Maybe he'll succeed, but it's probably likely that he won't. He needs to focus.
Into a niche, right? Into a niche.
That's right. Just like SaaS. I mean, vertical SaaS tends to be more profitable and more successful than horizontal SaaS up to a certain point. Then you can branch out with more products.
Right. Well, I think that's one of the hardest parts, right? Sometimes we want to help everyone. We don't realize that by helping a few, you really get good at that part, and then you can kind of grow.
That's absolutely right. You make your mistakes and you can correct them, and then you can expand the business to other verticals if it fits that. But I mean, all companies make mistakes. It doesn't matter what. I mean, we see huge companies that do things incorrectly.
Right.
For example,
so what I heard from that a little bit is a marketplace in which people don't maybe necessarily want to always pay, but therefore, because they're not paying, they're not really valuing the advice that they're given.
That's exactly right.
Right? Yeah.
That's so true. I mean, you've got to spend money to make money. That's what it comes down to. And I've done that in each of my companies. I've taken a risk. That doesn't mean you don't, part of that is, and when you're raising capital, that doesn't mean you commit everything to it. I mean, you get outside investors if it's appropriate, but then you're going to have to deal with the outside investors too. So you should get up to a certain point where you have a product, and there's a lot of money out there. It's available, but you come across much more professionally if you've got a good team and a plan. I see some terrible business plans, pitch decks. They break all the rules, and the companies end up not succeeding. And I've seen that throughout my career.
Gotcha. And you're seeing it particularly now as you do fractional look?
Everybody and its brother has an AI company.
Yeah.
It's all about AI. That's where the majority of the world's funding is going today. AI, maybe second, cybersecurity. And just as I said years ago, every company is a technology company now. I mean, McDonald's is a technology company. Every company is going to be an AI company now. Every company will ultimately use cloud resources. Yet today, maybe 12 or 14 years after the cloud really started becoming that snowball, we still have only about 25% of the companies in the US that take advantage of the cloud. So, and some may never. There's always going to be that outlier, but ultimately, cloud computing still has a long growth great growth projections. And AI, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to need AI in your business because it will help you to compete, and it will help you to become more profitable ultimately.
And that is where it is. So tell me, it just kind of this is a really good sort of reminder as to each one of these waves, right, and what they've done. This one does feel different because it's significant, but it'll be another wave that we will work through, right? Tell me about my last question is always around a piece of advice that you'd give to someone, to a younger version of you, something that you wish you had been told along life's journey that you weren't, but that you'd gladly share with someone who's listening to us today.
I guess that I learned by osmosis. I mentioned, I didn't believe that I could build uh, my own company until I was a fractional, until I was a COO with my technology services company, and we were growing like wildfire and hiring hugely and becoming profitable, becoming successful, and having customers throughout the United States. And my second customer was in Antarctica and in Asia, and the company expanded to Europe. So I guess in response to your question, um, believe in yourself. Confidence is critical. Invest in yourself. Um, and that doesn't mean getting 3 college degrees like I have. It means learn what you need to know. Um, Take risks, because you're always taking a risk. You're working for somebody in a big company, you could be let go tomorrow. So when you compare it to that, to starting your own business, there's different levels of risk there, both risky. So take risks in your life. You succeed, it'll give you more confidence, it'll give you satisfaction, and learn to be a leader if you can. Treat people with respect and dignity. That's what I would say. It's always about treating people well. And we've all dealt with people in our lives that take advantage of us. You're going to be taken advantage of. I'm taken advantage of. Everybody is. But that doesn't mean that because somebody does it to you that you should do it to them.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Joe. Um, I would tell our listeners, if you want to learn more about my 9-figure leadership program and how to lead in a 9-figure business, check me out at drhelmutlove.com. Joe, how can they learn more about you or connect with you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name I'm the only one in the world with this name currently, Joseph Kirschenbaum, Kershenbaum. I primarily do all my business out of LinkedIn, and I have a strong referral network and can provide additional resources to anyone that asks.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for joining me today.
Helmut,
Cheers.
thank you for your time.